On today's show, a recap of Canada's pre-tournament game against Slovakia ahead of the World Juniors, and a special guest comes on to discuss the Habs' European prospects, all coming up on Locked On NHL Prospects.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this podcast, I break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. I'm Hadi Kalakesh. I'm a scout and prospect analyst across multiple platforms, including this one. And on today's show, I'll be breaking down the standout prospects from the World Juniors pre-tournament match between Canada and Slovakia. And then European correspondent for Habs Eyes on the Prize and a good friend of mine, Patrik Bexell, hops on to discuss the Montreal Canadiens European prospects, including two who are currently at the World Juniors. Now, before we get into any of that, just remember to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, make sure to make us your first listen of the day. It's always very much appreciated. Now, to get right into it, we'll start with this recap of the 6-1 win of Team Canada over Team Slovakia. Canada crushes their opponent in this pre-tournament phase. Colton Dach scored the opening goal for Canada by jumping on rebound. And then both Brennan Othmann and Dylan Gunther later on in the game just showcased their sniping abilities with a perfect wrister on both ends for a goal. Joshua Roy got a goal and an assist, including a great individual effort on his goal. And Shane Wright and Connor Bedard both earned assists each in the game. Now, funnily enough, Slovakia's only goal in this game was attributed to 2023 NHL draft prospect Samuel Honzek, but it was actually an own goal from Shane Wright. He tried to make a pass from behind his net, and he just sent it right off Benjamin Gaudreau's skate and into the back of his own goal. Now, I just wanted to break down some notable events from that game, the things that happened that are sort of out of the ordinary. There were a couple of notable events. First and foremost, in the first period, Anaheim first round draft pick Nathan Gaucher and New York Rangers second rounder Adam Sikora had a knee on knee contact in neutral ice, which left Sikora laying on the ice for quite a while. But thankfully, he returned in the game. Now, it did seem pretty egregious on Gaucher's side at first glance, but on the replay, you could clearly see that Gaucher didn't stick his knee out or anything like that. It was actually Adam Sikora who was trying to jump out of the way of the shoulder check and left his knee trailing. And Gaucher did not change the direction of his knee, did not modify anything about his posture. He just tried to continue through with the hit. But Sikora's knee was still there, and Sikora ended up getting the brunt of that impact. Then another freak incident happened as Brennan Othmann was going to the net and got a high stick from a Slovakian defender right under the visor, which left him bloodied and on the ice. He returned later on in the game as well, but he stayed down for quite a while, and it was a pretty scary incident because he was bleeding profusely out of the mouth. And there was sort of a fear that he might have lost a tooth or two, but he ended up being okay after all. And then finally, a quick shout out to Connor Bedard, who in a pre-tournament match got under both Simon Nemetz and Dalibor Dvorsky's skin in one single post whistle scrum. Is actually pretty funny watching Bedard and Dvorsky, two top 2023 NHL draft eligibles, head to the penalty box and continue to chirp each other all the way down to the neutral ice. So it was very funny to sort of see them go about it, because again, it's a pre-tournament match. It's not a game with any sort of stakes in it. But they were still at each other's throats. Bedard had one guy by the jersey and was just tugging and pulling on him, while Dvorsky was trying to headlock someone else. And then they ended up facing up later on. I believe Dvorsky sent Connor Bedard to the ground with a shove, but the camera angle wasn't too clear on that play. But it was just a funny situation overall because, again, it's not a game that counts for anything. It's just a preparation match. So to see those two guys go about it and be at each other's throat was pretty unusual. So the game ended 6-1 for Canada, and the shots were 47-17 in favor of Team Canada. Now, the first period wasn't as sort of one-sided as the second and third, especially the second period. I believe it took until the 19th minute of the second period for Slovakia to get their first shot on goal of that period. So Canada was absolutely all over the place in the second, especially in the third, and just ran away with this game. But Slovakia was pretty in it until that second period. The power play was 2 for 6 in favor of Canada. Their power play was 2 for 6, and Slovakia was 0 for 5 on theirs. Now, for the standouts of this game, first and foremost, obviously Connor Bedard. He stands out every game for Canada, but in this game, he really showed that on top of being one of the most skilled prospects in this tournament, he's also got a mean streak and he's not afraid to show it. So just showing his competition that he's able to get involved in scrums and is able to hold his own. That's something that's really important in his case. Then another standout for me for Team Canada was Joshua Roy. His skating has improved a bit, in the QMJHL, and it was obvious in this game because he was much more comfortable carrying pucks up the ice, in control and creating zone entries on his own. His goal was all him. Basically, what happened is Brendan Othman scored his goal. There was a face-off at center ice. He chips the puck behind the Slovak center on the face-off towards the defenders. The defenders are scrambling because the puck is bouncing. He just attacks them right on, intercepts the D-to-D pass, and then goes right in on Patrik Andrishik, the netminder for Slovakia, and just roofs it on the backhand top shelf. So really, really great effort from him. It was impressive to see. There was also Brad Clark for me, who was a standout. He was much better in this game than he was against Switzerland. He might have just been Canada's best D man overall in this game. He was creating off the rush. He was defending really well. Most of the time when he was on the ice, there was nothing happening for Slovakia, and he was helping his team create a lot offensively. On Slovakia's side, there aren't many standouts, but one player who stood out negatively, in my opinion, was Dalibor Dvorsky. I'm pretty concerned in this case because apart from one defensive play in the third period, he he was barely noticeable in this game. And a player like that, with the amount of skill that he has and the habits that he has, you'd expect him to stand out a bit more. So I was kind of surprised with that, but I'm hoping this is just rust from the pre-tournament and he ends up sort of, replacing his game as the tournament goes on. But that's going to be it for the breakdown of Canada versus Slovakia. Now we're going to go into my discussion with Patrik Bexell about the Habs European prospects right after these messages. So let me paint a picture for you. You're hanging out with your friends, you're watching the World Junior Championship, having a blast. You're putting back a couple of drinks, and as the evening goes on, a few drinks become too many, and then you think of calling for a ride. But you live nearby, you can make it home okay. It's not that big of a deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. Everybody knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads. It's to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. If it only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. All right, so I'm joined today by Patrik Bexell, the European correspondent for Habs Eyes on the Prize and the host of the Habsent Minded podcast and the Dispatch of Red Eyes on the Prize as well. Now, Patrik, excels specifically regarding Swedish Habs prospects. So we'll be talking a bit about the Montreal Canadiens prospects overseas with a focus on their two Swedish prospects playing in Europe right now. First and foremost, how are you doing, Patrik?
I'm fine, thank you, and Merry holidays to all of you. It's late on the 22nd today, so yeah.
It's that time of year.
Soon Santa will be here, and I'm looking forward to that.
Exactly. So yeah, I wanted to start first and foremost with the
Don't drink and drive.
Oh, of course, absolutely. We've got ads for
I'm
that.
going to be drinking right now, so just so you guys know.
Of course. So yeah, we're going to start with a prospect who's playing top pair minutes right now for Sweden at the World Junior Championship, and that is Adam Engstrom. He's got 5 points in 23 games so far with Rögle in the SHL. He's starting to creep towards 20 minutes a night of ice time. First and foremost, what have you seen from him so far in Rögle, and what have you liked?
I really like his skating. Let's start with that, and I like his hockey mind. Those are the two things that stands out to me. He's agile on the ice. He uses his brain in a lot of situations where I think it's important to use it. Primarily, I think he's been using it to the offense when he was in Ängelholm or in Djurgården before he went to Ängelholm and Rögle. And I think that is the struggles, the small struggles that he's had this year is actually on the defensive side. However, when you compare him to a player like Mattias Norlinder, he hasn't struggled as much on defense, and he's also set to really try to enhance his defense. And I think that's really, really important. He's coached by one of the best coaches, I think, in Sweden. They've been unlucky this year with Rögle, few injuries. They went to the finals, semifinals last year, and they went to and won the Champions Hockey League. But I think they've been unlucky, and obviously in Sweden, where you don't have long-term contracts, you're going to lose players in regards to that. And on top with what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, there's a lot of players coming back into the Swedish system that has I said made more difficult for Rögle. On the other hand, if you look at it from that point of view, the journey that Adam Engstrom has done so far is even more impressive, because he and Wallinder has taken William Wallinder, Calgary prospect, if I remember correctly, has
I think
taken Edmonton, yeah. Well, one of the Western teams. They have become the first pairing for Rögle. And two juniors, more or less. One just aged out of the World Juniors. The other he's in his first year, has taken that responsibility. They played very well under those circumstances, and I think that's really, really important. And it shows the confidence, partly from the coach, partly from Engstrom, and it also shows what kind of a great pick Adam Engstrom is. He wants to be the best defender in the world. I don't think he will get there, unfortunately. But I like the fact that he has stated it. I like the fact that he's having that as a goal. It also means that he's willing to learn on defense, and the defensive side is where he has to get better. He has gotten better. I think the World Juniors will show that a little bit. I also think that, because many will be like, why wasn't he picked in the second round? Why wasn't he picked in the first round? And you and me both were watching Djurgården last year, and Djurgården was stacked. The under 20 team of Djurgården was stacked, and you sort of lost him because you didn't realize how good he was. I think it was a very, very smart pick in the third round for Montreal to pick him. I know there is a lot of talk about other French Canadian players, particularly from my colleague Matt Drake. But I think it's really important to realize that this is a very, very smart pick. And I spoke with Cam Abbott at the start of the season. I mentioned that Adam Engstrom might be the most underrated prospect in the Canadian system. And his answer was a little bit like, I don't know the Canadian system, but he's not underrated here.
Yeah,
and it shows the confidence that they're giving him, the opportunity they're giving him. It's there, and I'm really, really impressed. And I think I was impressed by Norlinder, but that was flashes of brilliance. Here, it's more the stability that impresses me, and I think that is maybe consistency, stability, a work in progress, willing to learn. I think that Norlinder was very, very good at his best things, and it's a little bit like, and obviously coming off of the World Cup and in soccer or football, as we say here in Europe, and he says, like, I remember this. You went to a Brazilian training, and they were all practicing what they were good at. Adam Engstrom practices what he's not good at because he wants to get better at the overall game, at everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, in your opinion, the fact that he's playing 20 minutes on average approximately right now in the SHL, is that a fluke, or is that something that he's earned his way up for?
He's earned his way there. I also think that, Cam Abbott and his coaching team, they're inclined to give the opportunity to players that deserve it. You don't have to earn it. You just have to deserve it. There is a slight difference there, at least in the Swedish vocabulary. And I think, he gives it to the ones that deserve it.
100%.
And he's not getting the power play minutes. Let's be honest about that. He's getting certain minutes in the box play. but he's earned that the hard way. And I think, yeah, for the general, I've said it, as I said in August, he might be the most underrated prospect. And you obviously had him the highest, the top 25 under 25. I think I
Yeah.
was the second highest, but still 5 points below.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a player that we should have been more aware about, especially coming up in Djurgården's system, which is a really good system, but then moving on to Rugler's system, which is an even better system.
100%.
And I think that is what when we, even as scouts or very keen analytics people, we should have taken that into account at the draft and possibly also after the draft when the top 25 was out. That there is no chance that anyone has impressed me more than Adam Engstrom at this time in of the season so far. And that says a lot, because there are some really big exclamation marks in Europe.
100%. Now we're going to take a look at some more Montreal Canadiens prospects, specifically one in Sweden and a couple over in Finland, right after these messages. And we're back with Patrik Bexell from Habs Eyes on the Prize, host of the Habs and Minded podcast, and our European correspondent. Now, I wanted to mention another Swedish prospect playing in the SHL right now of the Montreal Canadiens, a prospect that was obtained from Calgary in return for Tyler Toffoli, and that is Emil Heineman. Now, he's got 2 goals in 9 games so far for Leksands in the SHL. What do you make of his game so far?
You should also probably say that he has 3 goals in 3 games for the Swedish national team.
That is very true.
Which makes him stand out a little bit more.
Yeah.
I obviously, when we acquired Heineman, I spoke with his coach directly 5 minutes after the trade happened, more or less. Maybe 10. But that's about it. He was in another call, so he had to call back. What I think is that Heineman has the potential from half the ice, and that's the forward half of the ice and the opposing half of the ice. He has great skills there, and his shot is remarkable. I'm not going to, as his coach said, because I compare him a little bit to Victor Olofsson, and I think it's very in Buffalo.
Definitely. Yeah.
I think it's a fair comparison. It will take him time to reach NHL. If he reaches NHL, it will be on the premises of his own and his skill and the skill set that it brings, rather than try to change into a player that you might hope that he becomes. Heineman is really good in forechecking, like deep down in the offensive zone.
Yep.
He's very good at forcing turnovers. He's good at scoring goals. That's his strength.
Absolutely.
His limit is more or less on the other end of the zone. His defensive reads are crap.
Yeah.
His defensive awareness is okayish. But to merge in order to become an NHLer, you need to merge these two. You don't have to excel at it, because you can excel at putting pucks in the net. Obviously, we see it with Toffoli in certain degrees. We see it with Hoffman. Obviously, you see it with Olofsson as well. So I think it will take time for Heineman to get to the NHL. A year, maybe 2 in AHL. In SHL, he's been used on the first power play unit in a bumper position, which I don't really like to see. I think he would be better on the half wall using that shot, a little bit like Cole Caulfield, as an example.
Yeah, of course.
But these are decisions. You have to realize Leksand is playing to win the SHL. They're not playing to develop a player for Canadians. They're playing to win the SHL, which is a professional league, arguably the top third in the world. You got to realize that when you try to. I reached out to the Swedish coach of the national team, and my wife, my fiance's favorite person on the world, I think, Sam Hallam. I'm just a second guy.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I think in regards to that, I tried to get a comment for this podcast to use, but unfortunately he hasn't answered. It's Christmas time, so I completely understand him.
100%.
Uh, but yeah, 3 goals. He was used on the fourth line, he wasn't used on the power play to the same degree. Uh, but that shows that he can score with very good players. I think that is the important bit. On the other hand, you also have to realize one of them was an empty net, which
Hmm.
is, fair play to Hallam to play him in the situation where there's an empty net. There were still 3-0 up, so yeah, wasn't too much of a danger. In one game, he wasn't that playing that confident. So you can also argue that when he is at that international top level,
Hmm.
mid-season top level as well. So not when half of the teams are in the NHL are out. You you see that he still lacks, and I think that is what he brings to Montreal right now.
Hmm.
A lack of defensive awareness, a very good shot,
Hmm.
and he is a person that needs to develop, and that's not bad. I just don't think that he will play NHL next year.
Yeah, I'm a bit of the same mind. I really like the offensive instincts. I love the off puck movement, the way he's able to get off the wall and get shots off. But for me, the big concern on top of his defense is his skating, and that definitely needs to come a long way before I'm sort of comfortable projecting him as anything more than a third line or fourth line scoring
He
forward.
he's, he skates very well straight down the alley.
Yeah, no agility though.
No agility. He can't turn. It's all that.
But I wanted to move on to Oliver Kapanen, a Finnish prospect who's playing over in the Finnish Liga. I just wanted your thoughts on his season so far overall. I know his production has increased, but I wanted to know what was behind that specifically.
I think that first and foremost, his production is up. That's what we're looking for. His production. Do I have that number here? Comparing him to other draft year and draft plus 1 years production, he's been really really low. He's been under Jesse Ilonen as an example, which if you look at other Finnish prospects, I think he's actually even further down than Johnny Ikonen in the D plus 1 year, which says a lot. Now he's in his D plus 2 and his production has increased. Great. He's a bit sheltered, which you would assume is something that will happen for a player in his D plus 2 year. Kalpa is doing better than you would have guessed before the season. So that's a good part, and he's part of that progress. He has led the team in rookie scoring, which is really weird because he played obviously about 30 games last year, but I think it has to do with minutes in Liga, whereas in Sweden it has to do with games. So I'm a little bit confused. He scores in batches, and I think that is the problem for me.
Yeah.
I rather have he scores a goal a game or every other game than he scores 4 goals in one game and none in the next 5. And I think that is what it comes down to. Consistency. He seems to be going hot or cold. He seems to be going lacking confidence, and when he lacks confidence, he lacks a lot of confidence, and it takes a while to get back to it. His defensive acumen is undisputable. He's solid. You put him out there, you know he's going to win the face-off against one of his own age, and you're going to see that in World Juniors. You know he's going to set up a good play or exit play out of the zone, either to counter or to just get the puck out of the zone because it's a power kill or a box play, as we say over here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's where his strength. I project him third, fourth line player. But if you get one of those in the second round, you're pretty damn good. You have to be honest about that.
Now, I just wanted to go and talk about Petteri Normi for a bit because I haven't
Mm-hmm.
followed him at all since his draft. I just wanted to have your thoughts on him.
I'm really, really impressed. I think I said it at the draft, and going back looking at numbers, and he's playing in HPK, which is not the best team traditionally in the Liga. He's carrying that team, like he's carrying the defense on that team. his stats are unbelievable. I think I wrote in the EPR that he's the reverse Kapanen. You put him out there when you need to shut something down, when you need to get the puck out of the zone, and when you need to transition from your end into the opposing end. He's there. He's the guy you ask to do it. And I think it was a very, very smart pick by the Montreal Canadiens because how should I say it? Like, his trajectory was positive, and you don't know where he's going from there. But you know the trajectory was going upwards, so you continue. You
Yeah.
bet on that trajectory to continue, and it has. I think it has developed even further than you sort of expected, which I think is really, really impressive, and something that none of us predicted from a 6th or 7th round draft pick. Over age as well. I think it's a smart way of betting because I said it before when it comes to some of the Russians, you draft them in the last year of eligibility because you don't have to compete with anyone else. And putting that on a 7th round draft pick or a 6th round draft pick is a smart move because you have more data available for you, especially during the COVID years. Timo Kunari from Ilaheti, one of the biggest papers in Finland, told us on Habs Minded before the season started that he thought Nurmi would be a national team player at one point or another during the season, and if that would be in the Finnish tournament or the Swedish tournament or the Czech tournament or the Swiss tournament, it didn't really matter, but he would be there, and yeah, he will be there. Partly by his own work, but also because someone will turn the roster spot down. What I would look at with Nurmi is, will another bigger team come looking for him come trade deadline in February? That is what you should look for as in Montreal Canadiens. He's not going to be in the World Juniors. He's aged out, but he was a pillar in the Finnish team in August. He is a very, very smart player, and I'm taken aback a little bit by how smart and how good he plays.
That's great to hear. Now that's going to be it for today's episode. Now, just remind everyone where they can find you and your work.
I'm over at Twitter at Zeb_Habs because there was this How the West Was Won, TV show when I was young, and not as beautiful as you, Hadi, though. But I was young, and
Thank you.
and Zeb McKayen is obviously the hero of that show, and Seb was there, and unfortunately Seb was taken, so I took Seb up Habs, and you find me at Eyes on the Prize for obvious reasons because that's where we met.
Absolutely. Now, thank you very much for watching. This has been Locked On NHL Prospects with Hadi Kalakesh and guest host Patrik Bexell, and we will see you next time.